Welcome to Listening to Paint Dry with Mike and Dan, a podcast about the art and hobby of miniature painting. I'm Mike, and thank you so much for joining us on our continued quest to become better, braver, happier painters. Today, Dan and I are super excited to welcome a fantastic painter and an awesome streamer. Would you please welcome to the show, Zambies Decays. Zambies, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
It's interesting. The first thing that caught me about it was your name, because it's been a running joke in my house for about 10 years about preparing for the zombie apocalypse. And my middle child constantly goes, "Zambies, the Zambies are coming," and it's pretty funny. But the other thing that caught me was your fantastic artwork so we're really super pleased to have you here to talk about your hobby life. As we get started, why don't we talk a little bit about your hobby origin story? I know that people go through these a lot, but I'm never sure our genres cut across Warhammer and Dungeons and Dragons and figure painters and stuff. So just if you could give us, our listeners, something about how you got into this crazy, silly toy painting hobby.
Yeah, so I am originally origin story a traditional artist, illustrator, and graphic designer. And I started streaming on Twitch with game streaming. I was streaming Warcraft and Path of Exile, Diablo, and all of that. When transitioning over into illustration, I went to a friend's Twitch channel who is a comic book artist, and he was hosting a miniature painter. And I was curious, so I clicked on it and I started watching and interacting with the community, asking questions about the hobby, and I really wanted to get a taste for it. So I bought a learn to paint kit and I started painting. And long story short, I absolutely fell in love, and it has been a passion of mine for the past almost 3 years now. I don't see myself stopping. I'm absolutely in love. I started with more D&D miniatures, but I got introduced into Warhammer, and I'm really loving Warcry right now. So the tabletop gaming aspect came after the painting, but I love both.
Nice. That you just opened kind of whole host of questions there. So I guess I'll do the how did the graphics design and illustration background, how was that translating that to miniature painting? Was it a smooth transition, or were there things that you had to learn, et cetera?
I think a lot of people assume that if you are good in one area of an art field, it will translate into another. And yes, it has things like color theory and composition and certain basic principles to art and design that you can apply to miniatures. But at the same time, I wasn't used to painting 3D and learning, I had used heavy body acrylics, and you have to learn small scale. Like, I have painted canvas before, but painting small little details and all of that, there are a lot of techniques that you aren't necessarily going to pick up on right away or be good at, and you have to learn a different type of medium. So I may have a leg up, some people say, than other people starting the hobby, but it doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to be really good at this just because I use a different art form.
Now, were things like, I guess when I first thought about that question, I was thinking, like, are there, everybody uses this phrase like volumetric highlighting and such. Was that like a similar approach in 2D as in 3D, or because I know you're still trying to paint three-dimensional shapes on a two-dimensional surface, but on a three-dimensional surface, do those same kind of rules still apply?
I think the basic principles of all art and design are like cross all mediums apply, and you just have to learn to tweak them slightly for working whether 2D and 3D. But I definitely think that, yeah, learning certain things, volume, contrast, composition, color theory, all of that definitely helps and is totally transferable into minis.
Do you feel like you are a narrative style painter, or what kind of behind? Like, I know for me, I typically I can't finish a miniature unless I have the story in my head. Um, do you focus on narrative, or is it color exploration? How do you kind of uh, focus on your miniatures?
I think it depends on the model and what I'm doing it for versus tabletop. A lot of my pieces are experimental just for fun, or for competitions or anything like that. But overall, I love building bases and a narrative. I love storytelling. When I look at a model before I start, I'm always like, how do I want to do this? Do I want to just play with color and try things out? Or do I want an emotion? Do I want to tell a story with this piece? And most of the time, I do. Like, I want this piece. I don't focus too heavily on technique and more on making something convey a certain message, whether that's an atmosphere or an emotion, something like that.
Nice. Now, are there? Let's start with non-miniature painters. Are there? Who are some of your influences from the non-miniature painter art world?
Ooh, I think I like to take a lot of influence from things that you wouldn't think would maybe influence miniatures. Like, one of my favorite artists is actually Alex Gray, not to be confused with the miniature painter. Most people might know him from doing like the cover art and stuff for the band Tool, but he is a fantastic artist, and I like all the detail work he does. I love detail work as being an illustrator. I do a lot of line work. That's the type of art I like personally for my style. And I do transfer that over into miniatures as well. There's a wonderful sculptor named Beth Cavender, I think. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but she takes animals and uses like human turmoil and emotion and psychology and applies that into animal form. And some of her pieces can be slightly disturbing, but also extremely beautiful at the same time. So I really like her work. There's, oh, now I'm put on the spot trying to think of
Sorry.
no, no, no. Those are the two that come off the top of my head. Like Escher, I like those styles. I really just
It'd
love
be really
people.
interesting to see somebody try to do something Escher-esque in
Yeah.
miniature form. You
Mhm.
know, it's one of those ones that's like somebody's like, I've been working on this for 10 years. You know,
Yeah.
for sure. Well, what about in the world of miniature painting? Are there particular artists that you look at and get inspired from?
Yeah, definitely. The like one of the most known that I think a lot of people go to is Roman Lapat. I absolutely love his color and just like raw emotion in his pieces. Kaha, her
Oh,
style is amazing. Um, I absolutely love her work. Uh,
color explosion. That's the only way I could describe her
I
work. It's
call
just
it
so gorgeous.
as like an oil slick, like liquid dream state.
Hmm.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, I was
Uh,
absolutely. She just won a demon, right? With
She
that,
won
with her,
silver. Yeah, I actually
yeah,
got to meet her at Adepticon. She's
nice. And
lovely.
I can imagine. Yeah, that when I saw that Sigvald and saw it with the demon, I went, really? GW actually recognized what that, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Hmm.
and then I guess I don't know if you saw the Alexandra from Craft World Studio did the crazy kind of, I don't even know how to describe what she did for the Chaos Cultist. That was
Hmm.
just, I don't know. It was amazing. I love people that play with color. So,
Yeah,
um,
I love their color palette and just yeah, I love looking at their stuff. And I would say Sam Lenz is a good friend of mine, and he has always inspired me with basing as
mhm.
well and pushing that and storytelling. So I love his work.
Yeah. Sam is a friend of the show, so absolutely, we agree. We love Sam and Roman as well. Roman. I don't know if you've ever had a chance to, but if you do, if you ever get a chance to take a class with him, they're life change. It's like life changing. Even his beginners class is, we were sitting in a class with complete noobs, uh, people that are figure painters, people that are Golden Demon winners, and 30 people in the class, and he manages it like it was just, no big deal, and it's just amazing. So,
I
but
wish
then,
that we could like there's so many artists that are outside of the United States that I wish there was like a bridge, like a gap to find more ways to meet them because outside of Adepticon, which not everybody can go to, and
right,
I don't foresee flying to the UK anytime soon unless I get a free plane ticket there.
right. Yeah, I know that for sure. Yeah, I just put one in college. I got two more coming to going to college at some point soon. So I'm like, yeah, the Monsantovino's gonna have to wait.
Yeah. Yeah.
Probably to the point where I won't be able to see miniatures anymore. But um, old people's eyes. Um, so I guess kind of along the same vein, what is a recent project that you've done that you were just like, you know what, I'm just gonna play with colors, slap some paint on, and see where it goes.
Ooh. Doo-doo-doo. I was gonna say, how recent are we going?
It doesn't matter. No, it's fine. And I
Okay.
understand that, there are probably cycles in your painting where you're like, oh
Yeah.
crap, I got to get ready for a tournament or games and so painting stuff for Warcry might take priority.
Yeah, I'm working my way through the new Heart of Gur box right now. So I'm like,
Mhm.
that is what my mindset is on. And I'm not really totally playing with color with that one.
Right.
But I know I've said it plenty of times, but this is the piece that always sticks out in my mind because it came at a certain point in my life that I just have so much raw emotion with it was my apples bust because I challenged myself. I didn't use white or black on the model at all. And I mixed a lot of colors, and a lot of the shadows are just purple.
Hmm.
So it was a lot of playing with different things. And then also, I did a Pride Marine for a charity event for the Trevor Project. And I decided to do like a non-metallic gold,
Hmm.
but I did it with purple shadows as well because I just love purple shadows. So it was purple, orange, and yellow for the gold, and I kit bashed it. I put a female head on it. Oh no, for a space marine. Um, and I put wings on it, and I just made it fabulous. And it had rainbows, and it was ridiculous, but it was just a color explosion of fun, and I
Hmm.
I loved that.
Ridiculous isn't always bad.
Yeah,
Ridiculous can be totally awesome. But I
I
keep
love
hearing no.
ridiculous.
I keep hearing purple, and the only thing I keep thinking of, I'm like, you must know Michael Proctor.
Yeah,
he's,
yeah.
he's a purple addict, right?
Yeah, green and purple are my favorite colors, so they
Mhm,
always end up either both of them or one on a model. It's very rare do I have a model that doesn't have purple or green somewhere on
mhm. So it sounds like we need to get you a Joker bust
it.
to have some fun with purples and greens for sure. Is there a color that you find particularly challenging? I know, like for me, yellow is just, ugh, and I'm trying to paint a bell for my 13-year-old, and I'm like, oh my god, and her dress is yellow, so it's like, what color should the shadows be? So,
Ooh. I used to think it was yellow, but I've actually been painting more yellow lately. And
mhm,
honestly, I think the color that I like and I use, but like a bright neon orange is always annoying to me because it
mhm,
takes so much longer to work with. Like I can get yellows to work and reds can sometimes be annoying, but I feel like a lot of yellows, maybe it's the paint I use, just need a lot of coats in order to make it nice and smooth and coverage wise.
mhm. Now, is there, as you've gone along your hobby journey, and even it could be including from when you were transitioning from graphics and two-dimensional art to the 3D art, what are some of the struggles, or not, struggles is the wrong word. What were, I guess, some of the difficulties that you faced. I know our listeners really relate to these because it makes them feel not alone when they're like, "Oh my God, I can't get glazing," or things along those lines. Were there any techniques or uh, could be anything that you kind of felt were a bit challenging? I think there's a good word, challenging.
I feel like everyone always says this, but non-metallic metal always threw me for a hoop for a bit. And the funny thing is, I just don't like painting metal in general, even metallics. I'm not a big fan of metallic paint. Um,
Preaching to the choir.
yeah, I just so for to kind of like haven't mastered non-metallic metal yet, but in order to get out of the little like blockage I had in my brain of grasping that concept was actually the fact that I was trying to do it in black and white,
Mhm.
and I struggled with that. So as I started doing it in color and just doing colored metallics, my brain clicked better with that. So I think it was that, and starting out glazing was a bit of a thing for me because I didn't use it too much when actually painting, and there was a big gap. Like I traditionally painted in my teens and stopped in my early 20s, and then there was like a whole 10-year decade where I just did digital work. So then I when I went into the hobby, um I was rusty. I didn't, I hadn't painted in a while. So now whatever I did know about thicker heavy body paints, I had to apply with thinner paints. So getting used to like glazing and like wet blending came easy to me. I love wet blending, but certain types of layering and stuff like that, you you know how the paint breaks down when you thin it.
Right.
That those were different things to kind of get over.
Mhm. And I feel like canvas painters have a tendency to use more mediums than miniature painters too. Like you get more glaze medium and retarder medium, etc., from canvas painters. Now, were you mostly just an acrylic canvas painter, or did you do oils or watercolor?
I like watercolor, and every once in a while I still do them, but it's not my strong suit. I
Mm.
did do oils. I have oils, and I've been dying to try them on a miniature. I haven't done it yet. But I was mostly acrylic, and then some bit of oil for about a year or two.
Mm-hmm. So that's on a bucket list. Oil to miniature painting.
Yeah, I
Nice.
think the problem with me is I can be a little impatient sometimes because I jump around the model all
Hmm.
over, where I work on one little area and then I'll go to the next area, and I don't care if I spend like 20 hours or 100 hours on a model, but in that moment, like, okay, it's dry, I'll work on this and I'll work on that. With oils, you have to set it down, and you can't for a while, and I think that's the only bit that's kind of keeping me away from oils, because I need to set a block of time out to actually play with them.
Right. Yeah, I think for me, I'm a momentum painter, and I feel like oils would totally crush my momentum if I
Yeah,
had to
exactly.
stop and wait, and then I
Mhm.
wait a couple of days for something to dry, and I mentally moved on to another project at that point, for sure.
Mhm.
Um, so, do you do commission style work at all, or like, if so, what kind of commission work do you
I do. I have commissions open for my Patreon only,
do? Hmm.
and it's basically on pieces that it I opened it up because people requested it, and I wanted the ability to paint things that I normally wouldn't just buy.
Hmm.
So it'd be nice to paint, and then other people would have my work. But I don't do armies because I I have my own, and
Hmm.
I'll paint those, but I hate batch painting. I'm not a big fan of it. It has to be in small little sets of like, okay, 10 models. All right, we take a break, we'll work. Like I finished 99% of Curse City, and by the end of it I was like, ugh, I don't want to paint this anymore. Like, I love these models, but the momentum's gone. I'm over it. So yeah, I definitely need breaks. So I prefer one-off models, and those can be anywhere from like small little tabletop models to display pieces as well. But I don't like um I pick and choose. Like if I
Mhm.
don't feel like my heart's not in it and that's not a model I'm going to enjoy painting, I won't take the commission because I feel as though I wouldn't give it my best.
Right. That's cool. No, I totally get it, and I'm finding more and more commission painters are that way. You know, if the model doesn't speak to them, or if it's something that they would feel would be laborious, then they kind of pass on a commission. And that makes a lot of sense. So let's skip a little bit and talk kind of about your tools. Brush, you know, we always have that war about, you know, Winsor Newton, Raphael, Monument, Broken Toad, Rosemary and Company, and just could go on for days because every time we turn around, there's a new brush company. Uh, do you have your kind of favorites or your reliable ones that you use?
So I I'm one of those people that 90% of my work on a model is done by big synthetics that I buy at the hobby store,
Nice.
like cheap brushes. Yeah, all I say is if they've got a thick belly and a pointy tip, they work for me. I will use and abuse them. I'm not very nice to my brushes because I usually work with anywhere from a size 8 to a size 6 depending on the model, get all the bulk work done, and then I'll go back in with a smaller detail brush. And I do have a few sables, and those are either Monument or I had some Winsor Newton. And I've
Mm-hmm.
heard really good things about Broken Toad and Rosemary. I just have never used them.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't been available for me to buy. And I just haven't pulled the trigger on buying them online. So I would like to try other brushes, but I'm just that type of person where I do know that certain tools will help make a process go easier or faster. But at the same time, I'm comfortable working with synthetics and cheaper brushes. It's just like I know how to handle them. I know how to work with it. I'm comfortable, so I just do it. I don't feel like I need to buy into like a more expensive brush. Maybe if I try it and I'm like I really like this, I would change my mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I guess along the same lines. So, are you a high snap or a softer brush painter?
I prefer a brush that is firmer.
Mm-hmm.
Like I like a brush to be able like I move it and then it holds because I feel like sometimes when the brushes are too soft that they don't they just bend. Like they don't you don't have as much control. I If it's a little stifter, I can work with it, and I think that's because I do have a very light touch
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to painting, especially with detail. I just like, you know, when you hover over the model
Mm-hmm.
where you're like you're not actually touching it and then finally you touch it. I kind of like I'm that style of painter until I get right there
Yep.
with it. So I
Practice
would,
swings.
yeah, practicing. So I prefer a firmer brush than a
Okay.
softer one.
Awesome. Now, do you have any of the hooked synthetics that you use to get in weird places?
Yeah, everyone's like, "Oh no, the synthetics hook," and when they hook, then they're just a different type of tool. Like that's how you dot eyes, or you get around corners for edge highlighting. You just
Right.
learn how to use it once it hooks.
Right. I was giving feedback to somebody at ReaperCon, and we were talking
Mhm.
about how to get into the details. And I was trying to explain to them, don't, sometimes you can't just go to the detail, right? Sometimes you have to like put the brush next to the detail and kind of slide it in on the model as opposed to trying to go in head first. And I'm like, I pulled out a hooked synthetic and I was like, see, this is even better because it's got a little hook on it. And you don't have to push as hard. So
Mhm.
yeah, you know, and that's but I also get yelled at for hoarding paintbrushes by my wife because I have some, you know, a massive stack of them.
Oh, I don't throw them away. Like,
Yeah.
unless the brush is literally disintegrating and falling apart, they go in my texture aisle or
Hmm.
like little, yeah, I have a little row there. And yeah, use them for texturing, use them for basing, use them for adding glue, stirring things.
Right.
I don't like throwing things away because I feel like it's going to end up in a landfill unless I've got the most use out of it as I could.
Nice, nice. So let's switch to the next part of this then. Are there particular paints that you prefer, or are you just a like me? I shop for color, not for paint. But you got a puppy, huh?
I do. Sorry.
No, don't apologize because I've got two enormous ones that at some point will a leaf will fall and they'll need to tell me. So,
Yes, exactly.
so don't worry about
She
that.
sounds
That's
very scary, but she's not.
what type of dog is it?
She's a German Shepherd.
Nice. So you're a bigger dog person too, then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a Lab Great Dane mix and then a Rhodesian Ridgeback mix, and so
Oh,
they're both. One is 110 and the other one's 85 pounds. So
oh wow.
yeah. Oh yeah, no big boy. I love big dogs. Like or what is my kids bought me a shirt. I love big mutts, and I cannot lie. Um, so I totally get it. The nice thing about Zencaster, it'll give me two audio files, and so I'll be able to
Okay, yeah.
take it'll still be in the background, but I'll be able to. I'm not that sophisticated, but I know there are people that can take all that stuff out. But it'll be able to. It'll mute down, and nobody cares because COVID changed the new normal.
Yeah.
And so yeah, half the time my wife's doing dishes or something in another room, or so it's lucky that we're doing this during the day. All right, let me get back to my train of thought. So we just talked about brushes. Paints.
Oh yes.
What can you talk to me what type of paints you use or prefer? I know you had started out with heavy body acrylics. Now it's interesting because that's kind of where the fancy pants side of miniature painting is going these days with scale 75 and people schminkle or schminky. I'm not sure which one. Roman uses those, so now everybody wants to use those too. But what kind of paints do you prefer?
So I do have heavy bodies that I will use medium and thin down and use every once in a while, but most of the time I first started out on Reaper paints.
Mm-hmm.
Um they were affordable and easy to get into the hobby with, and I still like them. I like them a lot. I then started using Vallejo Model Color, which I still use. I love those, especially for wet blending, basing. I mix them into other paints. I really love those. Then I went into Pro Acryl. I got a
Mm-hmm.
taste for them. I like the Pro Acryl. And right now, I'm really loving P3. I
Mm-hmm.
absolutely love P3 paints. I haven't. I'm not like a brand loyalist. I am sponsored by Reaper and Pro Acryl because I like them
Mm-hmm.
and I enjoy their paints and the company as well. But I think that people kind of limit themselves to only one brand, aren't like opening themselves up to other tools or things. And I think that every brand has pros and cons and fits different people's styles, and you can use them for different applications. So I like to try all paints and see what I like and what I don't like. And I haven't really tried much outside of there. I've tried some Turbo Dork. I like their paints, but I'm not really a metallic
Right.
shiny paint person, so they don't really fit my style of painting. But I think situational, I've used them on spells and stuff like that. So they work really well there. I like them.
Photobomb.
Yeah. Uh, she's trying to warn me something's out there. Sorry.
It's okay.
I've used some technical paints from Citadel, and I like those. I haven't really bought into their actual paints just because of their price point.
Yeah.
And I use Army Painter washes. I haven't used their actual paints. So I like trying things. I am
Mm-hmm.
totally open to trying many different types of paints, but there are certain ones that I like to gravitate to for certain things. Like
Right.
glazing, I love using Reaper for that.
Right.
And wet blending, I like the P3 and the Vallejo. You know, there's like, okay, what am I going to do here? I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
use these paints. They work better, you know?
Now, are there colors that you find make their way to your palette often? Like I know Deck Tan from Model Color and Burgundy Wine from Reaper are constantly on my palette, and I don't even remember how I put them when I put them on there. So what
Burgundy
about?
wine is a favorite of mine. I love adding it to dark shadows. And
Nice.
that is, yeah, that one's definitely on there. Um, I haven't used it too much lately, but Vallejo Buff is always a big
Mm-hmm.
one. There is a beaten purple from P3, which I use so much. I love that color.
Nice.
I believe a yellow green from Pro Acryl is a new one that I keep using because it's like an olive color, and I love that.
Hmm.
So yeah, there are definitely certain paints that I'm always like, what am I gonna use? Yeah, this is definitely like olive flesh from Pro Acryl is usually my go-to when I'm highlighting.
Hmm.
Like I'll mix that into everything.
Right. And a lot of people use Sunny Skin Tone from Vallejo the same way as well. So yeah, that's cool. No, I'll have to remember that olive flesh because I need to put an order in on Monument. I have a few of their paints. I have so many paints, and I just have been trying not to because I'll find something I like about them, and that'll be how I justify it. Like justify buying them. So it sounds like you haven't had. I know the kind of the hot one out there right now is the Chimera colors. Have you had a chance to try them at all, or?
I actually have. So jury's still out on those. I did a whole write up on my Patreon about my opinion, and I walked through the steps on how I use them. Now, in all fairness, I got the paints secondhand.
Hmm.
I didn't buy them. A friend used them and was like, I don't really like them because they don't fit my painting style. Not that they're bad paints. It's just, yeah, they're the type of paints that they handle differently than
Right.
others. So I think if I played with them more, I would like them. Their color, the pigment is gorgeous, but I feel as though they benefit a lot from zenithal highlighting and using them in a certain way. And I don't zenithal highlight very often,
Hmm.
just because I am very bad with using my airbrush. Like 90% of everything I do is a hand brush. I will sometimes prime with my airbrush, and that's it. I got to get better with it and using it. So yeah, they to me they kind of work like inks or
Hmm.
high pigmented watercolors in the way that I feel like how the brush handles them. So I don't know if I just need more experience, but they're not my comfort zone.
Right. No, and I get it, and that's what I feel like one of the things too that we try that um, you have like almost all the paint conversations kind of need to be caveated with that there are. I hate to say it this way, there are Chimera paints are probably a more advanced paint. It's something probably you shouldn't start with, and really, a lot of people shouldn't start with scale 75 paints either. Or I don't know if you've ever used Andrea, but those are like dropper bottle that are basically like heavy bodies. Like they are so thick and fragile, as I learned. Um, and then you have kind of like the Citadel and the Army Painter, which are kind of more easier access to painting type paints, and none of them. There's no. I hate Army Painter paints, but I love their shades. Like so. There's something for everybody in all these lines for sure.
I've
Um,
never used scale 75, and I've never used Army Painter's actual paints. So
mhm.
I always tell people, some people give me negative reviews on them, and I've never bought them or used them, so I don't have my personal opinion for
Right.
that. I do like their washes though, and I do use their washes.
Mhm. Yeah, like you said, there's something in there for all different types of painters. So let's talk a little bit about that airbrush thing there that you want to get better
That
at. So
elephant in the room.
Uh, so one of the things I always ask artists is like, what are areas you want to improve in? And then, so here we go.
Mhm.
There's our segue into it. So,
Yeah.
what type of airbrush do you have? And it's kind of what's going on with it. Why haven't you used it more?
So the thing with me, the airbrush, I have a Patriot 105, and
Hmm.
it was given to me because everyone was like, an airbrush would make things really a lot easier, and people are right, and I need to be better with it. I like using it. It's great. It's quick, easy for priming. um I would like to actually, like, I have sometimes larger pieces or even skin work, and like just airbrushing would be nice
Hmm.
to do that. But the problem is, I hate cleaning it, and I hate taking it apart, and I hate putting it back together. And it's really the care aspect that I need to just have someone sit. Like, I've watched videos, and
Hmm.
impending Duff is a sweetheart and helping me every once in a while with that, but seriously, I just need to get my act together and be better about working it and figuring out like the pressure to use, and actually like putting it together is the hardest part. It sounds stupid, I know, it's a personal problem, but I hate putting that little piece of machine back together. Me and machines just don't get along very well.
No, I totally get it. I actually have thought about using an airbrush and then gone, I got to clean it afterwards. I'll just use a brush.
Yeah.
Like, uh, it's worth the painting four super thin layers to get the same coverage as one airbrush shot, as long as I don't have to clean the damn thing.
Yeah.
I totally get it. And a lot of people start with the Patriot 105. It's a very good workhorse brush. But I actually switched back to aerosols. And I know it's probably going to give me cancer and die, but I switched over to using the Mr. Hobbies surfacer primers from a can. They're better than I could have ever done with an airbrush for me. I'm like, holy crap. And especially, I use it a lot when I'm painting metal miniatures.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of times, like even like Reaper and Dark Sword kind of have, sometimes they get pitted a little bit. This stuff is amazing. I know it's definitely something that'll probably cause me to finish losing my hair or something along those lines. But I think it's
I
worth.
rattle can. I
Yeah, are you a
do.
rattle can?
I either like if it's busts or something like my competition piece that I've done before, I hand brush primed it. Like
Mm-hmm.
totally did that. But metal miniatures and terrain, I always rattle can that. I don't care. I think it looks great. And I use like either automotive primer or the what is it? Uncle Adam really turned me on to the camouflage. I think it's from Krylon,
Mm-hmm.
and it has a little bit of a texture to it. It's very matte, but it has a little bit of a texture. But I like that because it looks really gritty when it comes to terrain.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I usually get that in like brown or green, and it's really nice.
That's interesting. I didn't know that it had a little bit of texture. That's kind of cool, actually. I have to consider, because that's a lot cheaper than any hobby can primer.
Yeah,
You
I've
know.
used the Citadel can primer before. That was the one that I bought first. And I liked it. I think it's a great primer, but I think for what you get out of the can versus the price,
Whew.
I just go straight for the like standard Krylon or Rust-Oleum or something like that.
Yeah, and the price is just so exorbitant. I mean, even though like things like Army Painter and Vallejo sprays are cheaper, they're still, I mean, $14 for a can versus Walmart $2.99, right?
Yeah.
And so it's, yeah, I totally get it. So airbrush is an area that you want to work on and do more of. Is there anything else in your painting that you look at and want to improve on? More like, I don't want to say, I hate saying critique yourself, but kind of like, what are things that you want to work on as far as your painting techniques or placement of lights, etc.? How, and I can keep rambling. I apologize. Go. I'll let you
No.
speak now.
I'm a queen of rambling. I got it. Um I think like, and the word critique I know is very sensitive for some people, but as working in the commercial arts for so long, critique was like I'm used to getting my work like tear to shreds because if this isn't what the client wants, they will tell you. Like I handle critique pretty well, so I will tear my stuff to shreds, and I feel like to me, ooh, I mean, yeah, I'm definitely working on the non-metallic metal that I want to improve. There are some techniques that I feel like making certain things smoother would be nice to learn, and the airbrush and getting those qualities. But at the same time, I've also kind of just accepted like brush strokes. I love them. Bless you. Bless you. I love.
I'm so sorry.
No, it's fine.
Sorry.
I love just like being more. I'm trying to add more of the artistic side than to making something look flawless. So experimenting, pushing my art in different ways is something I would like and to get better at. And maybe kit bashing is really fun. I love doing. I would love to push that and try to create more weird and funky things.
Mhm. Do you see yourself ever venturing into the world of sculpting?
um yes and no.
Hmm.
I would not like to sculpt a complete model, but I love building. I'm currently working on a kind of secret project, but
Of
a
course.
bit of dioramas. I love creating sets and scenes, and I'm pushing myself to create something bigger than I ever have before. And that plays into basing and all of that. So sculpting little bits in here, like I've scenery, I've done
Mhm.
green stuff work, I've created, little mushrooms and stuff like that, or added face features and onto a model I could do, but I don't like just starting from scratch with just clay.
Mhm.
That I really appreciate people who do that. I love watching it. I would love painting their stuff. There's a fantastic artist named C. Bush that I have been watching for years, and he was actually sculpting a space marine not too long ago.
Mhm.
But his work is amazing. So my dog is just not letting up. I don't know what's going on.
There's probably a squirrel outside mocking your dog.
Jade! Jade! Shh.
It's all good. If it's not one thing, it's another in this world. You know what I mean? So I'm not worried about it.
I don't know what her deal is. Okay.
Yeah. And so where I live, I have a house right behind, like there's a pipe stem house right behind me. And I guess when we bought the house, we kind of didn't realize how close they were until we actually lived here and we're like looking out like that's their dining room. We're watching them eat, like, and we can totally see them. But there's been times I've been doing interviews where the guy will go basically right behind me with the leaf blower. Like, or there was a period of time where about 6 months, almost every week that they had construction workers. And then one of the running jokes we have is that in every construction group, there's one singer. And you notice it's true. It is a true thing. There's always somebody on top of a roof when they're working. There's 10 people and one of them is singing at the top of their lungs, and you're like, dude. So it's
And
some
I bet it's
lovely.
always lovely too.
I have some lovely Spanish love ballads that have been recorded in the middle of interviews behind me, and then I'm pretty sure we had somebody singing in German at one point. I was like, "That's
Ooh.
interesting. That's new." Um, and so this is when I need to interview someone like Roman or Treverian when we have somebody singing in German in background. Good ambiance music. Okay, so kind of talked about sculpting. Let's see, where do I want to go next? So kind of along that same vein, I usually do this question later in the interview, but I'm going to do it now because it fits. Are there models or figures out there that haven't been made yet that you would be interested in seeing? I used to say the Silverhawks, but now somebody's doing those, and I was able to paint one for ReaperCon. Um, but now I say Dark Tower series, Stephen King. I'd love to see like the Gunslinger, somebody do the Gunslinger, etc. Is there something like that that you want to see?
Um, in the beginning, I believe I got this question when I first started out in the hobby, and then they made it, which was the labyrinth models.
Yes,
And
and those were
I
incredible.
wanted them, but I didn't want to pay the shipping on the Kickstarter, so I didn't. I passed
Yeah.
on it because the models and stuff were like, oh, I could pay that, and then the shipping was like crazy. Um, I really wish that like I just hated that outside the United States, international and other and like I know in Germany I just shipped a package to a friend and it cost me like $45 and it was just a small little box. So it's insane the cost of things. But yeah, I'm a big like 80s fantasy movie buff.
Nice.
So I'm happy they made those. I think like there's so many models out there that are cool and can be tailored to that style, but I'm gonna go wacky and say that I would really like to paint some of the characters from The Last Unicorn.
Nice. Nice. That that's a new one, and that's awesome. Yeah, I thought for a second there, I'm like, she's gonna go Secret of Nim, no, or
But
something.
like the Raging Fire Bull would be cool. The
Yes.
Harpy, the unicorn itself is really cool and unique. The style that it's
Right.
done in. So yeah, the lady, the creepy old lady would be nice. Yeah, I think there's some cool sculpts
Mhm.
in there that could be done.
Okay, so now here you are going to pick up something to paint for fun. What would it be? A larger scale bust or tabletop?
Ooh, for fun.
Hmm.
Um, That's that's actually a tough question because I do both. Like, and I think I space them out a lot where I like to do if I do a larger bust, then I want to take some time on some tabletop for a while, and then I'll go back to doing that. I think if I'm experimenting and doing something for fun, I would prefer it to probably be a larger scale model because you have more room to play, and sometimes especially on like tabletop models and GW, there's a lot of bells and whistles on there,
Hmm.
and it can take away from just um throwing paint on and having too much fun unless you're speed painting or you don't
Hmm.
care that much. So I think having a bust, and I love painting skin or a beast. I love creatures. I might be a weirdo, but I absolutely love painting fur.
Nice.
So something like that would be fun.
Now, when you say painting fur, uh, I hate to call it this way, but freehand fur or pre-textured fur?
Both.
Both.
And when
Okay.
I do fur, I've done it's the same way. Like, I even when the fur is sculpted in there, I will also do line work on top of that and add those extra details because
Hmm.
I'm a masochist and I love doing line work. So I will spend literally like, I don't know, I'm doing feathers right now and they could very easily be dry brushed, but instead I'm doing every little line on that feather for each feather, and I probably spent about, I don't know, 5 hours on one wing alone on one side right now, and I find that therapeutic and I love it.
Sure. No, I'm a glazer, and so I can sit there and put 40 layers of glazes on a thing, and it doesn't affect me. Now, granted, I'm a slow ass painter, but which is another reason not to be a commission painter because I'm super slow. Um, would you be willing to be the victim of a lightning round?
Have at it, as long as you're willing to be the victim of my crazy shenanigans.
Excellent, excellent. Crazier the better. Which is funny. My youngest just auditioned for her middle school play for Frozen, and so
Ooh.
we've had to listen to every single Frozen song. Now, I love the musical. Don't get me wrong, but if I have to hear "Love Is an Open Door" one more time and the craziness, I'm sitting there at ReaverCon, like the Dev's like, "What are you singing?" My friend Dev's like, "Oh, dude, don't ask. It's stuck in my head. I can't get rid of it." All right. So the lightning round. First question: are you a brush licker?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I have
I'm more and more outnumbered. Go ahead.
I
Sorry.
have an emote in my channel that's literally a brush lick emote, and yes, it's a running joke, and I full on embrace it.
So since you sort of already hinted at this, but we'll find out the true question, a true answer. Do you actually clean your paintbrushes?
Not as well as I should. After every paint session, no, I probably should. I take better care of my sables than I do of the synthetics, but like I said, I beat the hell out of my synthetics, so I rinse them really well, but I probably clean them maybe once a week.
Mhm. And so you already answered one. Our other one was TMN or NMM, so that's an easy one. I'll throw that out. So non-metallic or true metallic metal?
I mean, quick tabletop painting, I always go regular true metallic metal, but when I'm trying to paint something nice and all of that, I'll push myself for non-metallic metal even though I don't totally like doing it.
And so this may be one that you don't have an answer to because you may not be familiar with the work, but everybody constantly says that they're influenced by Franchetta, and so I always like to throw out Franchetta or Vallejo.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, are we just talking the paints then?
No, no, no. Oh,
Or are they?
Boris Vallejo, the artist. Uh,
Oh, okay. Because I was like, when I say Vallejo, like I don't. I
Sorry.
just think of the paints, and I'm like, wait, now I'm confused with this question.
No, no, no. The vacation poster. He did the silly vacation poster, etc. Um,
Oh, yeah. I'm terrible with names.
that's okay.
I'm not even gonna try to pretend like I know.
Fair. That's why we don't do this live. You
Yeah.
know, this is
And
one
then
of those
are you
ones.
talking about Frank?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. No, I love his work. I am very familiar with his work.
Oh, nice,
So
nice.
I'm gonna choose him.
All right. Not fair. See, there's another artist named Will Hahn and I who are trying to revitalize the world of Vallejo because like he's so forgotten compared to Franchetta in the miniature painting world. We're like, come on, we need to get back to some Vallejo. And every time you turn around, somebody's got a Kickstarter for another version of Death Dealer. Like, I mean, how many Death Dealers do you actually need?
Well, I'm not, yeah, like I'm a fantasy girl and like dark fantasy and all that style and gritty. So yeah, I'm gonna lean towards that way.
All right. Well, then I'm going to throw one that's not anything about that, but Star Wars or Star Trek?
Um, So I'm gonna go Star Wars because growing up, I was introduced to Star Wars. My dad was a fan. I saw the little Ewoks when I was a kid, and I fell in love. And I've seen all the movies. We're not going to talk about the new ones because I have feelings, but Star Trek, I have no problem with. I love the newer movies. I've watched the movies. I just never watched the show or was introduced to it.
Okay. DC or Marvel?
Marvel.
And I have to, this is a personal question because this is one of my favorite shows. Have you watched Moon Knight?
I haven't though.
Oh, okay. Moon Knight. I'm going to strongly suggest you put that at the top of your viewing list because it's very different and it may be the best costumes Marvel has done, including like random characters that just have a costume. You're like, damn, they spent some time on that, So, anyways, a personal bias, but that's kind of all I do for the lightning round. Just kind of throw some funny questions out there to pick people's brains. And so, thank you for doing that. So we're almost at about the hour mark, and so I'm going to throw out our standard closing question, which is our motto is better, braver, happier painters. And I was hoping that you might have some parting advice for our listeners as they continue their hobby journeys.
Yeah, I like that, by the way, too. I tend to always end like my streams with be excellent to yourselves and others. And while that isn't totally hobby related, but I think it kind of is. I think just like I tell people, get out of your comfort zone and try something new. And I always say that whether you like it or not. So when I started, I said I'm not going to paint Space Marines. They don't really appeal to me. And guess what? I painted a Space Marine. I didn't think it was so bad. I painted another one. Now all of a sudden, I like Space Marines. So I think that you should be like, well, maybe I don't like, painting Kingdom Death, or I don't like painting pretty models. I always tell someone try it because you never know what you're going to like. Try something different, try a different paint, try a different brush, get out of your comfort zone. You can go back to your comfort zone. That's fine. But sometimes you'll try things and you'll surprise yourself.
That's awesome. I really appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, our original motto, which we figured was kind of way too negative, was we suck at painting, so you don't have to.
But it is funny.
Right. And actually, it's going to be on the back of our T-shirts. Like, they suck at painting, so you don't have to. When we can ever get our asses around to having T-shirts. Hobby ADHD. So why don't you
Mm.
tell our listeners where they can find you? And I know you're a streamer, so make sure you tell us your times as well.
Yeah, so I am on almost all the social media, and unfortunately, Zambies was taking a lot of them. So it's usually Zambies Decays or Zambi underscore Decays. Instagram, you can see my work. I have a Twitter. I'm not super active on there, a little bit here and there. I don't know if I'm too old. I don't get Twitter that much. I have
I
a
feel your
TikTok.
pain.
Yeah, TikTok is hobby and just random chaos and fun things to let loose. So if you want to follow more of my hobby content, I stream on Twitch at Zambies Tuesdays and Thursdays, starting at 11 Central Time, which I think is like 5 in the British summertime, somewhere around there. And then I sometimes stream Sundays on YouTube. I am working on hopefully getting content out there in the fall. So I will be on YouTube at Zambies. So you can see me there. I think I covered
Patreon.
all of them. Oh yeah, and I have a Patreon. I am so bad at advertising my Patreon, but I am Zambies on there.
Nice. Well, thank you so much for being on and sharing your journey. Hopefully, this time we're not making you late for your stream.
Yeah, I set it back a little late for this. That's why I asked if you wanted to do a little early. So
Hmm.
I'll make it there eventually.
Well, we appreciate you spending your time with us today. I'm sure our listeners are really going to enjoy hearing your hobby story.
And my dog. I don't know what her problem is today.
Dan and I would like to thank Zambies for joining us today. We really enjoyed listening to her hobby journey, and thank you so much for spending that time with us. Of course, all her links will be in the show notes, and as you heard, she's on Instagram, Facebook, and on us as a Patreon. And so check out Zambi's work. You'll enjoy it. And again, thank you so much for spending time with us today. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Listening to Paint Dry. You can also follow us on Twitter at Dry Listening. Please drop us an email at listeningtopaintdry@gmail.com. Tell us what you're working on. If you have any ideas for a show that you want to hear, or just in general to say hi, we'd love to hear from you. Like, subscribe, and follow wherever you get your podcasts. And if you could leave us a 5-star review, we'd greatly appreciate it. That will help get the podcast some notice. And just remember, no matter what your background in art, you can always strive to become a better, braver, happier painter. Until next time. Listening to Paint Dry with Mike and Dan is a production of LTPTWMD. All rights reserved. No portion of this recording may be used without the express written consent of the host. The music is Death by a Thousand Questions by Springtide. Download from the Free Music Archive on a non-commercial attribution share-alike basis. All views and opinions expressed in the show are solely the views and opinions of the person who said them. All celebrity voices, if any, were impersonated and done so poorly.